What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Iconic Podcast, the first international podcast here in Prague, Czech Republic, with also the first guest, my good friend Bartek. Obviously, we have Conrad in the scene as well, and we got some great conversations ready for you guys today. So get yourself comfortable, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and you guys ready to dive into this one?
Absolutely.
Let's get it started, man. Let's get it started.
So, yo, boys, first thing I legit want to ask you guys, what are you, Conrad, your first impressions of Prague? Like, your first time pulling up to the city, what are your impressions? What do you think?
Man, honestly, I really love it. I feel like the vibe is very nice. There's a lot of cafes, a lot of bars. It's such a good time, and it's not too crowded. It's maybe because we are in the off-season. I love the town. Their architecture is beautiful. It's just such a good time, you know? And I don't even think it's that cold, to be honest.
You're pretty much from Siberia. The way you are, you go out in a t-shirt pretty much, and you're fine. But that's another story. What do you think about the beer, though?
I love it. I absolutely love it. As I come from Poland myself, we have good beer there, but Czech beer is on another different level, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Anywhere you go, you get fire beer everywhere.
Yeah, that's facts. And by the way, guys, quick backstory for you guys. Bartek is my good friend for almost 10 years as of now. He's from Poland. We obviously both live in the States. Conrad also has a background from Poland as well. So I thought that one of the cool things that we could kind of dive into in this episode are some of those differences and nuances between like the Polish and American culture. So I've been to Poland several times, and one of the things that never fails to shock me is how the people do not smile at you on the street.
That's so true to all culture.
It's so true, right?
I can 100% confirm that it's not even maybe Poland, but in general, those countries that were in this Eastern kind of influence in the past, we share the same kind of parts of our culture, and that's one of those that you really should not smile or look at people when you're in public, because that's not seen as a welcoming gesture like in the States.
Right.
For example, if someone starts a conversation with you randomly on the street, you will not feel that they are friendly. You'll just maybe feel that they want something from you, and you get defensive. Maybe
you think like it's something suspicious.
Yeah.
Dude, like I remember when I first came to the US after when I was 18 or 19 years old, I went to the store and I see like one person started talking to me, then another one, then another one. I'm like, yo, that's fucking weird. And then I go to the house, I'm like, Dad, like I don't know what's going on. Like everyone's just randomly talking to me. He's like,
really?
He was like, what do you mean randomly? He's like, no, like they're asking me, hey, how are you? Stuff like that. He's like, that's normal. You guys don't do that? I'm like, no.
It's crazy though, because like even over here, pardon me, like if I'm ever on the public transport in America and I see like an elderly woman, I'll like stand up first thing to pretty much offer my seat to them.
Yeah.
There have been times over here when I've been in the metro, and I kid you not, I stand up for the person, they don't even sit down. They look at me like
Really?
I'm like kind of like strange, if that makes any sense.
No, I mean, I always would like stood up for like, you know, older people and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
I can see it not being the thing for everyone, you know?
You know?
But overall, I feel like the difference between like the way of being, like in Europe, maybe specifically in Poland, or like in the US, is like, it's much different. It's just the culture, like the way you approach people. Like if you don't really talk to strangers. In the US, you literally talk to anyone about anything. So you just so much different kind of the way of being, you know, the way of living.
And another thing I just wanted to add in here is like, from what I've realized is like, in America, it's so damn weird. We call everyone our friends. I could have met you 5 minutes ago and it's like, oh, this is my friend. But from what I understand, like in Polish, like you guys have different words like kolega and przyjaciela.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So you guys have like different words to pretty much signify how close of a relationship you might have.
Yes.
Yeah, so, you know, I feel like in the US, yeah, like, he's my friend, you're my friend. No one really uses the word like acquaintance or like colleague. Like, it's not really used. It's just like friend.
That's facts.
So it kind of, for me, like the significance of this word, it like diminished a little bit, because I personally don't like calling everyone my friend, because for me it's like a significant word.
Yeah.
So I still like sometimes use like acquaintance or colleague, and everyone looks at me like, yo, like we don't really say that. But it just kind of feels a little bit strange, you know?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. But the difference between Polish people and Americans being open-minded and open for conversation like that, and Poles being very closed and reserved, I feel like that might also have something to do with the language, because I myself am the way that when I speak Polish, I feel more reserved, more calm, and when I speak English, on the other hand, I get easily excited. I'm more of a extroverted person, and that in a way is very interesting how English and Polish are different in this matter, and that language can in a way really shape the way the society is gonna progress from now on.
That's a great thought. And oh, dude, damn yeah, that was a good one. Listen, anyone out there that speaks a second language, maybe you can understand what I'm talking about. But similar to what he said, it's almost like when you speak in another language, depending on the language, you're almost not the same person you are speaking in, I guess, your native language, if that makes any sense. Like when I speak, for example, in any other language, whether it be Italian or whatever, maybe it's because I'm not a native speaker, but I don't know if it's because I don't necessarily know how to fully make myself understood, but it's just I just go about conversation in a totally different way.
You know, for me, maybe at the very beginning when I first moved to the US, I was probably like a little bit different person in both languages just because I couldn't communicate like 100% everything I wanted to.
Yeah.
But at this point, after, I lived here for like 7-8 years, I feel like I'm exactly the same person in Polish and in English. But to be honest, I feel like speaking like English / moving to America made me much more open person. So I'm like much more open-minded. That's the first thing. And I feel like I used to be like more introverted, and now I'm like almost extroverted. Like I don't really mind talking to people. Like I even start conversation with people all the time. So I feel like I change a lot as a person, just changing the environment.
Interesting. That's an interesting thought. And just kind of like bringing that whole thing full circle, I guess that kind of depends on the level of fluency you might have with that particular language, Like you said, you obviously speak English like a native speaker. So for you, it's probably like no different than if you were speaking with like your parents in your native language.
Oh, no, at this point, 100%, The toughest thing was like kind of to translate humor, because it's so tough to translate humor. Like a lot of jokes are different, a lot of idioms are different. So I feel like at this point, I kind of know like a lot of the idioms. I know like the way Americans react to specific humor. So it's totally normal for me. But at the beginning was tough because I would say something, I'm like, fuck, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you're right. Isn't that crazy? You can't translate humor.
You really can't. And there's a very interesting part to that when you have a movie, especially a comedy movie, and you try to kind of give the spirit of this movie to audience outside of US, but at the same time you don't want to lose the original kind of humor you had in this movie, and that requires pretty much a lot of flexibility in terms of translating this humor into another country. Because, for example, you might be throwing a joke about Rosie O'Donnell. I heard that joke many times, Donald Trump joking about that.
Yeah.
And for me as a Polish person, I have to Google who Rosie O'Donnell is. And that might be very, very funny to you guys, but for us, they might replace this person for somebody who is like that, but in Poland. So we can relate to that better and therefore understand the humor.
That's interesting, dude. I like that.
Just for the simple fact that I like didn't grow up in the US, I still sometimes don't get specific references about like cartoons or like movies that you guys have watched.
You're right. Even sometimes I've made references to like older music from like, let's just say like 10, 15 years ago, and you like maybe you didn't hear about it before, but I also forget that you're from like a whole different country. It's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Dude, so like for you, I gotta ask you, how do you feel like what are some of the pros and cons things you like about Europe versus America? I know like firstly, obviously Europe is much more of like a walkable area.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know like that's a big benefit because where we live in like the Northeast area, you pretty much need a car to get anywhere. Anyone that doesn't have a car is dealing with the shitty American transportation system,
Yeah. Honestly, I guess I can't be like 100% objective on that matter, just for the simple fact that I only lived in Poland until I was 18. So like all my adult life was in the US. So I feel like I can't really compare like that well. But you asked me about the differences, right?
Yeah.
I would probably say that there is a little bit maybe more opportunities in the US. I would say like you live maybe a little bit more freely. There is, I would say, maybe a little bit more freedom. I would say the standard of living is just higher. So I can enjoy the fact that, I'm able to have my own apartment, like a car and all that stuff as like a, I could have it as like a younger person, which I don't know if I can have exactly same standard of living if I were living somewhere in, like, let's say Poland, for example. Okay, so just I would say the standard of living is probably like the biggest change, you know.
Yep.
Like the biggest difference.
Yep, because we earn in dollars, obviously. In every other country, they have like, they have their own currency, whatever it may be.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Bartek?
Absolutely agree with you, and I can see your point where you're coming from with this thought that standard of living is something that made you choose to stay in the US. But at the same time, guys, it's like you can really see the difference when we meet on a neutral ground, because you have high standard of living, but at the same time, your cost of living is like 5-6 times what we have in Poland.
That's true.
And in a way, I might be making less than you do, guys, and live on similar level to a degree that I can go out with friends, we can have a beer here and there,
Have your
we
own
can go to
apartment.
clubs, have our own apartment, and you guys have the same things. And obviously, iPhone is an iPhone. It's gonna cost you the same no matter where you are located. And that's what I'm saying. When you're gonna come to Prague, it's gonna cost you the same no matter where you're from. So that's why if you have this more of a buying power, that gets you to a lot of places in the world. And when you come from countries like Poland or, for example, even Italy, Spain, they are slowly becoming on the same level, slowly, but we are getting there. And that's when you realize how much of a difference it makes to be from like a rich region.
You're right about that. I like how you said that. That's a great way to put it. And it's crazy how like you said, like Europe, you don't realize how old it is and how much history there was throughout all the years in Europe. Like in America, for example, we hear about events that occurred in Europe at certain eras, but when you go to see the Colosseum in Italy, it's spectacular. When you go to the Eiffel Tower, granted there's a lot of shit in Paris, I'm sorry, but it's also it's a magnificent structure. Even if you go to Poland, I remember one time I was with Bartek and his parents in Poland, and we actually were driving like in the countryside, and you see these beautiful hills and like nice villages, like picturesque Europe, and then suddenly you stumble across a concentration camp. And then it's like, holy shit, like this is real for them. This is real life. Like we can hear about it and read about it in the history books all we want, but a lot of the relics from this era, I'll call it, still exist today.
Absolutely agree with you. And I have a question to you, because obviously in Poland, it's a very, very big part of our history. How do you feel as an outsider who's been recently introduced to this history? How did you feel when you were in this concentration camp?
Dude, it's a very, I don't know if the word to use is dark vibe, but you're not going to be happy like you're walking around Disney World. You're seeing the atrocities pretty much that people lived through at a certain point in time, and we don't really realize how many people were really affected by such a thing at this particular time.
Yeah, and I feel like, people were being in pain there, people were dying. It just the thought of all that stuff going on in there, it's, again, like you can't be in a bad mood, and just makes you think like, damn, we are lucky to live in the times that we live right now, and that we weren't born, let's say, 100 years ago, where people really had like tough lives.
Think about that. Like, and when you think about it, the USA is such a young country compared to the continent of Europe that you could walk past a church in Italy, that thing could be like 2,000 years old.
No, 100%.
And you're like,
Absolutely.
You're like, oh my God, like how is that thing still standing? Think about it like this. In Europe, if there's a fire in an apartment or a house, everything inside burns up, but the structure is still there. In America, if there's a fire in the house, that whole thing is burning to the ground. The houses are pretty much made out of paper over there.
But the same goes with hurricanes. Wherever there is a tornado in Poland, it pretty much blows off the roofs, but the house itself,
The structure
intact,
stays there,
right?
Really?
But in America, when you see tornado passing by, it's a disaster.
It rips
Like
apart.
like
It rips
entire house
apart
goes.
Everything.
That's crazy.
In Poland, it's literally just the roof that's blown off, but nothing but that.
I agree with that. It almost seems like the houses in the US are built like from paper.
Yeah, that's true.
It's so true.
So when I see that comparing to like Polish houses, like I know like the quality of all that stuff is just much better,
Yeah, I agree with that absolutely. But that's also this kind of thing related to Poland being such a old country compared to the US, because we had so much time for development that we had never had this particular time in history of a rapid development. And I feel like in America, this country is so young, and after World War II, it started developing so rapidly that they had to construct neighborhoods within months, not within years, because there were like already a need for a people in a nearby factory. So they had to find housing for them, and they couldn't wait. So they built it the cheapest and fastest way possible. And that's maybe, just maybe, why houses in US are not exactly of the same. I don't want to say quality, but maybe they will not withstand as much as the European.
I think quality is actually a good word, bro.
I didn't want to go there, but actually maybe it is a good word.
You know, like, just quickly coming back to the differences between the US and Poland, like, now I just had a thought. To me, it seems like life in USA is like kind of living on the run. When comparing to living in Poland, I feel like the life is much more peaceful. Like, you kind of take your time doing stuff. And then the US is literally, you wake up, go to work, you know, take care of the kids, like, go to the gym, like, do this, do shopping. Like, it's basically like eat, work, sleep, repeat. And it's like kind of every day. I feel like it's literally living on the run. And it's really, the pace of the life is much higher than comparing to like Poland or like some other like European countries.
Dude, you're literally preaching. Like, if you look at, for example, like there's a saying, I'm sure you guys have heard it before, but the American people pretty much live to work. And on the other hand, you have the European people that work to live. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
But pretty much it's like, it's referring to the idea that the Italian people, I'll refer to them, they're very happy having the simple things in life, good food, family, all that stuff around. They're not so materialistic as we are. In America, it's always, how can I get more money? It's always going to be, this person has this car, I want to get that car too, which is a very flawed society. And if you look at American society, right, no matter how you want to say it, we judge success based on how much money you have. So, for example, you can have a rainbow-colored haircut, and you could have like your fingernails grown out so long it's not even funny, but if you have stupid money in the bank and you have supercars in your driveway, you're somehow winning, which I don't necessarily agree with. While on the other hand, in Europe, from what I understand, it's more things based on like education. That's more of a factor in regard to status as well. Am I wrong?
No, you're right to say that. And actually now you just reminded me of something that you said. You said that when you went to Italy, they would literally close a restaurant for like an hour or 2 hours, so like the staff could have like a dinner together, right?
My man, can I tell you something? I wish it was an hour or two. They closed for like 5 hours. Now, granted, if you go to Rome or any of those big cities, yeah, you're going to find places that are opened 24/7 even. But when you go to the small towns, the real Italy, the restaurants, the shops, all that stuff, they pretty much go home for 5 hours during the day to like spend time with their family, eat, rest. And in America, that's unheard of.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist at all. That would never happen.
But that's also related to the climate being so harsh in Italy during those hours that it was hard to work during these hours, and that's why it's called siesta, that they kind of sleep during that time or they do some activities inside, but they do not work in general, just because for the most part of the year it's just too hot to work. Just too hot to work. And that's crazy how climate can affect culture in a way that, for example, American people and Italian people are so different in realm of working. How they perceive work in general.
It's so factual, dude. And I'm going to be real with you. I'm Italian myself. But I could honestly say, like, in Italy, like, everything is slow. People don't want to work. I know that sounds kind of messed up. No, I can honestly speak on this matter. And anyone that's Italian that's listening to this podcast, you can agree. Leave me a comment down below. Granted, Italy is obviously a very split country, no? But in Italy, anything in relation to bureaucracy, anything that you're going to be waiting a ridiculous amount of time for anything to ever get done. In America, like I said, it's all about, like you said, it's all about being on the run. It's all about the rush. Money, money, money. No life, no time with family and friends. The work-to-life balance in America is garbage, in my opinion. And that's one thing I think the Europeans have down pat, that American people should look at them and almost take after them in that regard.
You know, at the same time, you cannot say that it's only bad because we're living on the run, but at the same time, again, US has grown so much, like they're economically very strong. And this is one of the reasons too, like people work a lot, people work like, let's say every day, businesses are growing faster because I just feel like maybe people are even like more efficient or like they just spend more time working. So that also helps the growth of the country, you know? So there are like pluses and minuses, I guess. Maybe there are benefits to the country and to the economy, but of course, like your personal life, it's being affected on like a negative way.
You're right, but at the same time, like, why do you think so many American companies are going overseas to get their workers? Because kids that go to university, college, whatever you want to call it in Europe, they're way smarter than Americans that come out of college. Like most people that come out of college in America, if you didn't go down the medical route or have like a scientific degree, you literally could party 24/7, do the bare minimum. Like imagine this, in America, you get 10% of your final mark just for showing up to the class.
That's interesting. Never heard about that.
Yeah, you like 10% weight of your grade is literally attendance, and they pretty much say, "Oh, you could miss 3 or 4 classes and you'll still get the 10." It's like, what?
You know, I do agree with you to a certain extent. I feel like the education and intelligence maybe plays a role too, but at the same time, the companies can probably get cheaper labor in a different country. So let's say if they hire people, let's say from India or even like from Poland or from like different countries, most often than not, they're gonna pay them less than they would pay people in the US. For the quality of work that's either the same or better.
Exactly right. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
So like it kind of, I guess it all adds up, you know.
But at the same time, American company paying far less than they would in US is still paying way more than you would normally make on a job market in your country.
Really?
So that's where both parties benefit, because you are not making as much as a US citizen, but at the same time you're making way more than your friend who works in local market. For example, some local company, right?
That's crazy.
So honestly, it's kind of like a win-win. Like
it's absolutely win-win situation.
It's a win for the employee and for the employer.
It's a win-win, but the American companies are still making off like bandits. If they weren't making off like bandits, they wouldn't be doing it.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, it's all about like maximizing profit and like making a business. Of course, they're gonna try to save as much money, not spend too much, and like pocket as much as they can. That's just how it works, you know.
Absolutely.
You know what, guys? Just bring it a little bit back. When we were talking about the concentration camps in Poland, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard, but actually after the war, a lot of Nazis were able to escape to like South America, even to like Africa or to like Italy, and like they almost opened like their own like colonies, I would call it.
I love these conversations. These are those conversations that just feed your curiosity. Like, think about this. We've spoken about this many times. This at this point is pretty much a known fact, but there are German colonies in South America. If you know anything about the world and geography, Europe is nowhere near South America. That's a long ride down there.
That really is. But that also became a benefit for them, because they wanted to be as far from people who know them as possible. So that's why they chose Argentina in particular. And it's really interesting why it was Argentina, for example, because before all the great immigration from Germany, they had 240,000 Germans already living there. They were the second biggest group of immigrants from Europe. And it's really crazy story how it even got to this point where they started fleeing to exactly Argentina, because they could, for example, flee to like Paraguay or wherever else. And there was this guy, and he rose to power in, I believe, 1946, and he was named Perón, I believe.
Juan Perón.
Exactly.
He was the president of Argentina.
Exactly. And he was in Germany. He met with Hitler.
What, he was a Nazi?
He was not a Nazi. He was like a fascist supporter.
Okay.
And he was so impressed with fascism, Nazism in general, that he was like, okay, I can, 1, support what I believe, and 2, I can make money of that. Because, guys, I don't know if you know that, but for example, United States took in some of the top tier Nazis because they were scientists. Because knowledge is very precious. USSR, same thing. But who stayed is like engineers, doctors, pilots, sailors. And Perón said like, oh, I cannot fight for the big names, but I will fight for them. And all of a sudden, you have like thousands upon thousands upon thousands of very, very well skilled, very well trained, and very hardworking men who had shady past, right? But when it comes to money, past is nothing. You can always erase your past with enough of dollars.
You know what? Like actually,
Well said, bro. Well said.
I actually did hear that about the Nazis in Argentina, and from what I understand is that U.S. and Soviet Union, they took like top level Nazis that had like, I would say like maybe the most knowledge, but like the mid level, and again they were taking them for like the knowledge about, let's say, army or like scientific stuff, but also about like the intelligence and like all this stuff they kind of knew from the inside of Germany. But at the same time, Argentina or other South American countries would take this mid-level Nazis, which also had very good expertise on specific topics, which helped them grow as a countries too. And speaking of that, there was this guy called Klaus Barbie. He was the chief of Gestapo in Lyon. So he actually was, I guess, he got a visa from the United States, and he was working as a kind of a counterintelligence officer before he actually, before he was like caught maybe like 20 or 30 years later, and then he was, went on a trial and stuff like that. But that only shows that there were so many Nazis that actually got to escape after the war. From my understanding, only maybe 50,000 of them out of the 150,000 that were taking part in all the concentration camps and everything went on the trial and died. 50,000 out of 150,000. Yeah. So there were
50,000 escaped.
Like even more than 50,000. I think actually close to 100,000 escaped. So you had countries like Argentina, you had Bolivia, you had Brazil, you had Chile. Again, some African countries.
So they've gotten to all South America. You said even African countries.
Yeah.
Even African countries, yeah.
So let's say coming real quick to Chile. I don't know if you guys heard of Colonia Dignidad.
Yeah.
So actually, that was started in 1961 by Paul Schaffer. He was a like low-level Nazi that actually after coming to Chile, he became like, I guess, very religious. And he opened that colony, which was almost like a cult. So there was a lot of Nazis that were living there. It was like an enclosed community. So actually, when Augusto Pinochet got into the power in Chile, that's when they kind of, I guess, maybe signed an agreement. So basically, the colony was protected, but they were serving to Chile as like a kind of torture center. So basically, all the political opponents of Pinochet, they were sent to Colonia Dignidad. They were being tortured and they were being killed. So that was like a very strange place, and that was going for like 20 or almost 30 years, which all the Nazis or like German people that would go there, they basically had to work like 16 hours. They slept 7-8 hours. They would not make any money, and all the income that was earned by them would go straight to the Schaffer, and he would basically spend all the money that he could to kind of like maybe make the colony better, to make sure that they are safe, to like, they had their own bakeries, schools, hospitals. It was like almost like a country within a country, and they were like really enclosed. Like none of them would really even was able to leave the Colonia Dignidad without explicit permission. So that was like a very strange place, and the fact that there were, I think actually it went up to like maybe 1980s or like 81 or 86 for like over 20 years. That's like insane.
Bro, I love how you said it pretty much became a country within a country. Think about that. And from what I understand, even to this day, if you go to Colonia Dignidad, they speak German.
Yeah,
they do.
I wonder, like, to what extent that is. Like, if I go there and walk into a store, are they gonna be like, "¿Cómo estás?" Or are they gonna be like, "Wie geht's?" Something like that,
Yeah, exactly.
Again, like a lot of the people that live there right now, they're like descendants of Nazis.
They're descendants of Nazis, right?
And from what I understand, now it's called like Via Bavaria or
Via Bavaria or something.
Via Bavaria. Yeah. And I believe like they were just even trying to open for tourism, or they're actually open for tourism. So like that's like mind blowing.
Guys, stay tuned. We're gonna be doing episode maybe 10 of the Iconic Podcast in Via Bavaria down in Argentina. So make sure you guys are subscribed.
Yeah. You never know what's gonna happen.
Never know. I'm
dead.
Yeah. So just coming back real quick to the Colonia Dignidad. So actually, this guy Paul Schaffer, he apparently was abusing children in Germany. Then he flew to Chile. Then he was abusing children in Chile. And after Pinochet stopped being a president, they were trying to prosecute him. But then he like flew to Argentina. And then maybe another few years they just caught him when he was like 88 years old. So like the guy was like a really, really bad person. So the fact that he got
88
so much,
years old.
yeah,
At that point, just let him finish out his days. He's pretty much done anyway.
Yeah, but for some reason, those Nazis, they lived to like hundreds.
Really?
Absolutely. For some weird reason, yeah. A lot of them, when you actually check, bro, 90 years old, 88, like all like that, bro. Almost nobody of those high-ranking Nazis, they lived for like forever in this Argentina.
That's crazy.
And other countries too.
you know what? Speaking of high-ranking Nazis, even like I think I would say Adolf Eichmann. That could be probably like the highest-ranking Nazi that got to escape from Germany after the war. And from what I understand, he came to Argentina and he started working like a Mercedes-Benz factory. He actually even got like some like very high position in the company, and he lived there for maybe like 20 years after he was being caught by Mossad. And the way it happened was he was basically saved there. No one even like knew where exactly he was living, what he was doing.
Mossad's like the CIA. Pardon me, but Mossad's like the CIA of Israel, right?
Yes, basically. So he would be totally safe and probably could live there until the end of his life. But from what I understand, he had a son, and the son met a girlfriend, and the girlfriend was like a descendant of like German Jews, and I think one of her, maybe it was her father or someone in her family, got killed in the Holocaust. So when his son was either bragging or telling the girl that that his dad was like one of the top Nazis, that's when she like tipped off Mossad. And they literally went to Buenos Aires. Next to Buenos Aires, they waited on like the bus stop where Adolf Eichmann would go to work every day. So they checked what time he was leaving the house, what time he was coming back, and they literally just caught him. They dragged him out, and they put him on the plane and just like took him out to Israel.
Yo, that is crazy. Yo, think about this, right? Imagine this. Your whole life, your name is Konrad Twardowski. All of a sudden tomorrow, it's, yo, you're no longer this. I'm calling you Juan Lopez. And from that moment on, you are going with that identity. Like, that to me is such an unfathomable thought that some people just have a total switch up in life. Even people that go under, like, witness protection programs. It's crazy.
Yeah, and you know what, like, blew my mind too? Actually, a lot of Nazis that escaped through the ratlines, it was even Red Cross was helping them to get the papers. It was Catholic Church. Churches from like Genoa or I think Rome, they were kind of like supporting them and like helping them escape.
That's crazy.
And it was like thousands upon thousands of fake documents. So there were so many of them that escaped, got the fake names, and lived until they were old.
They just pretty much escaped.
At the same time, Nazis got so bold in Argentina. For example, Josef Mengele, he was an angel of death from Auschwitz. He conducted a lot of experiments, a lot of gruesome stuff. We'll not like to get into details here, but he was not a good person.
We want to hear everything.
Maybe
on the extended
on
version.
the extended version of the podcast.
But listen,
and he just to finish, he came back to his real name after a couple years in Argentina, and a lot of Nazis, they were literally in Argentina under their own name. They didn't even change it, and everybody were set on fire after the Eichmann got caught. That's the point in time when everybody started losing their mind, because they didn't even realize that Mossad could perform such an action, that they come to another country and they basically kidnap this highest ranking Nazi and they bring him back to justice.
Yeah.
By the way, Adolf Eichmann was hanged in Israel.
Really?
Yeah, he was.
And as far as I know, that was the only death penalty in the history of Israel. The Adolf Eichmann
Damn,
one.
that's crazy.
And just bringing it back to Josef Mengele that you said, I was actually reading some interviews with people that were able to survive the camps. And of course, Josef Mengele, he was like a very, very bad person. He would like inject some, let's say, syphilis or some like different diseases into like people, see how they react when they die, how their bodies look like. They would like cut them open, do all the stuff without like anesthesia. But something that really like blew my mind was the fact that someone said that he would like to do experiments on twins. So he got like a random pair of younger twins, and he literally sewn them together like Siamese twins
on some human centipede shit.
Yeah.
This was actually inspired by these events.
No way.
It was. It actually
Are
was.
you?
And this actor who portrays the main character in Human Centipede, the first movie, he, from what I understand, don't quote me on that, but I read that he was deliberately chosen to resemble like a Nazi slash type doctor.
Dude, that's crazy.
Because that gets under your skin. That's scary when you see him in the movie, and that's because you associate this with the Auschwitz stuff.
That's crazy.
He literally sewn them together like back to back. They lived for like 3 days, and then after they got gangrene and they died. But he performed so many different things. Like he would try to change the color of the eyes of someone. So he would put like some like chemic stuff into like people's eyes. They would be like,
dude,
you're getting blind. It's crazy.
Think about how barbaric people used to live. Think about that. From what I understand, like even if you, for example, had like a broken arm, wouldn't they just kind of take it off, like amputate it?
I don't know, but the fact that this guy was able to escape and then live until like older age, and as far as I remember, he died in some like swimming accident. So he was like never prosecuted. He never went on a trial. He like died of like some accident after he was like 70 or 80 years old. The fact that he never really got any repercussions for his actions is crazy.
Yeah.
But you know, guys, what is insane? And I personally hate world for how it works, but that's like being angry on a wind that it blows. It's just how things are. But for example, some of the experiments conducted in those Nazi German concentration camps, they came out causing so much good, because we know nowadays a lot about hypothermia, and that helps saving people, because we know to a certain degree to which moment can you still bring someone back to, say, life, almost from the state of strong hypothermia. But we didn't have that knowledge. It all came from Dachau in Germany. They had those like bathtubs where they just put the prisoners in freezing cold water for like 12 hours to see what happens. And after the war, Americans liberated this camp, but they also found ready to go intel on what happens to prisoners after a certain amount of time in water. And they were like, nah, we're not gonna burn that. I mean, it's gonna be useful, right? And this conducted to save German sailors from being frozen to death in cold waters of Northern Atlantic. But it ended up saving so many people after the war.
Really?
Yeah.
So they actually took something out of that.
They took some,
That reminds
not
me-
only that, but
That's
far
crazy.
more things.
Really? That's crazy. That low-key just really brings a thought to my mind about how when the U.S. similar situation, when they went into Pakistan and got bin Laden, they pretty much took his computers, which had like tons of videos on it. And you know what's crazy? Like, from what I remember seeing on a documentary, Osama bin Laden was the type of dude where he'd be recording his like sermons in advance, and he'd be recording like 50 tries over because he didn't get the intro right. So, you know what's funny? It kind of reminds me with the crypto videos. I'm being real, bro.
Yeah.
That's how it is, dude. That's crazy. But anyway, look, they took a ton of intel from his compound in Pakistan, similar to what you're saying about that.
I have a crazy thing to add to what you said, because you said something like this execution of Adolf Eichmann was the only one in the history
yeah.
of Israel, right? It is the case to some degree, and it is not to a certain degree, because Eichmann was so high ranking that they wanted to take him back to kind of throw this exhibition trial and to show the world that they're gonna punish this guy. But there were some Nazis which were meaner to Eichmann, but they caused so much pain and suffering. And you know how they did that? They straight up, I heard about this one action of Mossad, they undressed, they only had their underwear, and they caught this guy. 5 of those Mossad agents, they caught this guy in his apartment, and 2 of them grabbed him, and they were like, "We're gonna read you what you're accused of." He read, and that was his trial. And bro, they straight up murdered guy on the spot with the hammer. Murdered him on the spot. That's why they were in underwear, so they can take on the clothes and just leave, because blood is like very hard to get off your clothes. And that's how it was done for the most part. They just caught him, they read him what he's accused of, and murdered him on the spot.
Damn, that's crazy. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that.
Dude. I'm sure there's a lot of barbaric crap that goes on that we kind of don't really get the
Absolutely.
full story on.
Like the Epstein Island, for example, for so long.
Oh, Bartek's about to open a can of worms.
I'm bringing
But guys,
another one. All right.
let's do it.
For so long, from what I understand, it's been like a conspiracy theory. And don't get me wrong, I'm not this kind of like Alex Jones kind of guy that I
We
believe.
need to
that
get
the
Alex
Earth
Jones
is
on the
flat.
podcast. We need Alex
One
Jones
day,
on the
one day.
podcast.
We love Alex Jones, by the way. Yeah, but I'm not like a theorist that I believe that the Earth is flat, but I always say that there is, to a certain degree, there is something to every single stupid thing.
No, you're 100% right. And like, listen, Alex Jones, he said a bunch of crazy shit in the past. You know how these people that are very conspiratorial
Yeah.
are, but I remember. Look, I'm jotting the deep archives of my memory. I remember seeing a video of Alex Jones when he was way younger, like years ago, and he was talking about, yo, listen, there's this guy. He's got an island out in, I don't even know where the hell Epstein's Island was. He's got an island out here. They're doing messed up shit with kids, all that stuff. And then you see that shit surface. When did that come about? Like last, like,
Yeah, it's very recent.
it's relatively recently.
Epstein died like last year, something like that.
I think it might be like 2 years ago.
Maybe 2 years ago.
But I think there
it
were
was
some
still
already
recent.
like people talking about the stuff maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. He was actually convicted once, but like again,
He was too connected.
the conviction that he got, it was some bullshit. Like he was able to leave the jail because he was working. Like they basically like paid off the judges and stuff like that, and he literally got like minor sentence.
But at the same time, imagine how influential you have to be to have a guest list like Jeffrey Epstein. He, from what I understand, he even had connections like Clintons, like all the big names.
Oh, big
all the
time,
big names.
big time. And you know what's crazy? I think it's funny how like different political parties, you're seeing lists come out from both sides, and there's differences among who had visited the island. But what's crazy is that there are a lot of people that appear on both lists. So, like you said, like the Clintons. What was the thing? There was like some photo of one of them with like a red a dress on in like the mansion there. Like
Yeah, I
what?
think it was like Bill Clinton. It's something crazy, but you also have to remember there were different lists. Let's say one of the lists was like people that visit the island. The other list was about the people that like use the jet. And again, he would let a lot of people use his jet, a lot of like influential people. So he kind of, I guess, builds the bond with them. So like the more people he knew, like the easier it was for him to like kind of maneuver and do whatever he was doing. So when you think about that, he knew so many people, and apparently everything that was going on the island was being recorded. So from all these recordings that he got, he was basically able to blackmail anyone about everything. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories about that, and some of them are saying that he was a spy, or he was like working for, let's say, British intelligence agency.
Why do I feel like I even heard Mossad?
Or Mossad.
Yeah.
So the thing about Mossad, so when you think about that, okay, Ghislaine Maxwell, she's a daughter of Robert Maxwell. And Robert Maxwell is being said to be like, he was apparently a spy of Mossad, of Israel. Even on his funeral, he was being buried on Mount Olives. And the way it works in Israel is that on Mount Olives is basically just saved for the heroes or for people that did something for the country. So when he was being buried, they had prime ministers, they had president, they had ex-chiefs of intelligence agency, and I think the prime minister even said that what Robert Maxwell did for the country, there is still not a lot being told about that, but he did so much for them. So it only tells you that if he was like their spy and he had a daughter Ghislaine, of course I'm sure like they were in on it.
I like how you said that, bro. Good looking, bro. That's pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah, but also you have to imagine this. How much is there going on in the world right now we have zero idea about?
Oh, a ton of stuff.
Because imagine this. If you do something shady, you don't want this to surface. So 9 times out of 10, this shit will not surface. And this is only one time it does. And we seeing this, we are like, oh my God. And what's below the water level is like the iceberg.
Oh, yeah.
90% of this is
There's so much
still
stuff that
underwater.
we have no idea
None.
about.
And we might never even find out.
We might.
What about all this like Vatican archives?
Oh my
Like
god.
there's so much different stuff that we might never find out about, or we're gonna find out in like 100 years or 200 years or like
Yeah, because
in
every
5 years. Like, who knows?
every so often they like declassify documents, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, when you talked about the Vatican archives, Catholic Church, for most of human history, that was most powerful institution in the world. You can compare it to like modern day, for example, CIA, in terms of what they knew. Like they knew everything in medieval times, say, right? They were the strongest entity on the planet. And what possibly in the world can they have in those archives? Bro, there's probably about every single king in Europe, every single event, there is something in those archives.
Dude,
I tell you
that's
what.
crazy because I've genuinely wondered what the hell they have in those archives over there. But I like how you said that about different kings and stuff at that point in time.
It really has to be some like gruesome stuff, some like crazy stuff that if it would like go out to public, people would be like literally like
Absolutely.
protesting, like panicking, or like I don't even know what would happen. But it has to be something that really would like worry people. So the simple fact that they're never want to declassify it, never want to say anything about that, they're keeping it so secret. It can't be just anything like good, average, or normal. It has to be something crazy in it. That the fact that they're protecting it so much.
Yeah.
Bartek, what do you think?
I'm thinking like, right now, we have no idea what's there. And probably, don't get me wrong, there are probably thousands upon thousands of like documents about nothing almost. Because they've been writing down everything. But between 100 documents, there is this one. And they never want it to surface. Just like Connor said.
That's factual.
Probably, if it surfaces, we might even change the way we perceive our history.
Perceive our history, perceive the Catholic Church, whatever it may
Absolutely.
be.
Perceive a lot of things, 100%.
And not for nothing, guys. I'm so sorry because I don't want to offend anyone who is a believer because I respect that. But at the same time, you have to realize that when you have a confession in Catholic Church, you basically tell all your sins, so all the bad stuff, to the priest. And he does not tell this knowledge to anybody, but he keeps it. And I'm confessing, for example, that's nothing. I maybe cheated on wife, maybe I stolen something, maybe I did some other stuff. But when kings are confessing, that's another different story.
They're taking that information in.
Because when
They're
they are
taking mental
confessing,
notes.
bro, they are maybe sharing some shit that would never otherwise surface.
Oh yeah.
Because they thought it wouldn't, and it will probably will never surface because it's deep down in the archives.
That's crazy.
And just going back real quick to the Jeffrey Epstein, I've seen a lot of conspiracy theories about that, and some of them are saying that he was working for Mossad, as I already said, and basically they were using him.
Connor, how did he die? Or we can't include that on the episode.
We have to.
We'll get to that in a second, but I just want to finish my thought real quick. So some people are saying that he was working for Mossad, and basically he was trying to get in touch with all these influential people, like let's say Bill Clinton or like Trump or other people, get them to do something that's illegal, something that public would hate, record that, give it to Mossad, so the way they can blackmail him and like ask him for do whatever they want, so they're not gonna release it.
And similar to what you said, that kind of reminds me of the few things I've heard about Bohemian Grove. You know Bohemian Grove?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So Bohemian Grove, it's like, now I don't know how true this is. Again, I'm about to make a reference to Alex Jones, but
We love the guy.
Yeah, but he's hit on some shit in the past, so you can't like 100% discredit the dude. But he even broke into Bohemian Grove so many years back. I don't remember when it was exactly, but
That was a long time ago.
yeah. But he was pretty much saying things along the lines of they do gay rituals and stuff of that nature to pretty much compromise people and have dirt on them, so to speak. Not that there's anything wrong with being gay, but they would have straight men engaging in gay activities so that, like I said, it's no different than a fraternity doing like hazing or something.
Yeah, it's not wrong to be gay, but at the same time you have to realize if it's, for example, a Republican Party member who is strongly against this, he's supporter of transgender family, and now that would surface a material of him taking part in like gay orgy, bro, he's done. He's done.
He's done. They have something on you.
But when I was trying to search for these videos from Bohemian Grove, first of all, I would put that on YouTube. Nothing would pop up. You have to go to some like side videos. You have to like fast forward for like tens of minutes, and then you find this video that's made in like 240p. Like you can basically, it's hard to see anything. It looks like it's made with like a calculator. So when I see something like this, I don't really know if it has like any truth to that, but apparently there is a grain of truth to every of these theories. So.
All right, now Conrad, I gotta ask you, bro. Like, just going back to what I said before, how did Epstein die, bro? What are we thinking?
Dude, honestly,
By the way, is this even something that we could talk on YouTube? It's fine, right?
Bro, we're not gonna be taken down? We'll see. I don't know.
Let's put it this way. I think Epstein was a very connected dude. So, however you
And
want
he might or may not act in a certain way.
he might come for us.
What do you think, bro?
Yeah, he'll not sue us, come on.
No, he's not gonna come from us, but you might get someone under witness protection named like George. I don't fucking know, George Alberto, who's actually looks a little bit like him. He might be under witness protection.
Dude,
Bro,
honestly, I feel like there are only two possibilities. Which one of them being he knew too much, so someone had to eliminate him, so he wouldn't sell people that did bad stuff. And the other possibility is that maybe somehow they helped him escape, just because he knew so much and then he was so connected. Again, it happened to be that all the cameras were off. It happened to be that the guards never saw what was happening.
Come on, bro. Are people stupid? Like, if you believe that the cameras were off, like, come on, dude.
Like, the one thing that I know for certain is that he didn't kill himself. He did not. Like, I don't believe that. I refuse to believe this.
I very much agree with that, honestly. I very much agree with that.
But look at this. It's like you said, guys. Always like when something like that happens, it's like, oh, the camera was off, the guard was on his break. Like, come on. I'm
Yeah. Like, there's
bro,
no way
it's like you shouldn't look for a conspiracy everywhere, but sometimes it's just like screaming at you
Agreed.
that there is something
when
wrong
I look
with
at this, it seems to me like the stars aligned so perfectly that everything happened to be not working. Someone happened to be not looking. Like, it just, I don't believe in shit like this. Let's be real. Like, there's no way it just coincidentally happened, like, that everything was off, no one was looking.
And yo, isn't it crazy just how fast crazy crap like this just gets swept under the rug? Like, oh yeah, the cameras were off, the guy died, right? The guy killed himself, right? Now, you never hear about Epstein again. Meanwhile, if let's just say like Trump or some other person like this says something, that's all the news is going to be playing for the next God knows how long.
Like, again, I feel like if government wants to sweep something under the rug, again, at the end of the day, they have big connections with media and with like TV channels. If they tell them don't talk about it,
they largely own the media.
Yeah, they're not gonna talk about it. If there's like, yo, don't talk about it, they're not gonna talk about it, and they're gonna come up with some other stupid shit that people are gonna concentrate on, and everyone's always gonna forget this.
It's factual. It's very.
That's
true.
why governments are so against, for example, social media, because that's something outside of realm of their power.
Yep.
And they cannot control that, and they get scared.
Especially when you look at X.
Because, bro, look no further than China, than communist China. Bro, straight up, first thing they do, they ban YouTube, Facebook. You will not log to Facebook in China. They have their own Facebook, from what I understand.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because it's government controlled. Because it's like in Orwell in 1984. When you think for yourself, when you have a free mind, you are dangerous. And this helps you get connected with people who think same way. And if you get connected, you form, in a way, kind of mutual mind. You work as a living organism, and you think together, and you can think some really, really dangerous thoughts from the government perspective.
Yeah.
So they want to cut it off, and they want you to stop thinking those thoughts. They would want to even take the tool away from you, which even allows you to think that thoughts.
That's the big thing with Elon Musk and X. Like,
Yeah.
he took this over because he's very big, from what I understand. Elon, if you're watching, by the way, drop us a comment. But he's pretty much very big on the idea of freedom of speech. But there's got to come that point where you draw a line. Like, every time I turn on Twitter right now, it's like videos of people getting like murdered, and it's like, I don't engage with shit like that. Why am I getting all this stuff on my social feeds?
Well, but honestly, at the end of the day, government controls the narrative. They tell you what they want you to hear, what they want you to believe. And of course, social media is a big problem for them. But at the end of the day, social media is somewhat still controlled by them. They still kind of try for you not to see things that they don't want you to see, Maybe X is being a little bit different just because of Elon and like all this transformation. But let's say if someone was being difficult for them, like they would just get banned on Twitter in before, right? So let's say if they didn't want Trump to do specific speeches on the Twitter, they would just ban him.
Bro, look no further than the Nelk Boy and Donald Trump podcast. I'm pretty sure when they shot the podcast and uploaded it, got taken down.
Oh yeah,
from
it was
YouTube
taken down
within 2 days. Now, like, if that doesn't scream that we don't necessarily have freedom of speech, I don't know what does.
Yeah, no. If you know something, you really gotta watch what you're gonna say, and even if you say it, it's gonna be taken down, and like they're never gonna let you like say what you wanna say.
Yeah, that's also why freedom of speech is so important, should be protected, because freedom of speech is freedom of thought, some way or another. Because if you cannot even form your opinion, you in a way are cut off from thinking it, because you cannot express yourself, so you cannot even come to this place where you would like to go with your mind.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Listen, boys, I feel like if we had a part 2 to this episode, that would be a banger, because we didn't even get to dive down those conversations on cults and some of those other things that we briefly mentioned we would speak on in the podcast episode. But I think that by now we should wrap it up. If you guys are still watching, make sure you guys follow us on Spotify. Leave the podcast a 5-star rating, as it does help us grow. Leave the video a like. You know the deal. Drop a comment down below, and we will see you guys all in the next episode. You guys want to add any closing remarks?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, guys, for inviting me. It's an honor to be first guest of the Iconic podcast. So I hope we maybe have time to do this in the future again. It was a pleasure to be here with you guys. I think we had some fire conversations, and if you agree, leave a comment down below. Thank you again, guys.
Well said,
And
bro.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for watching. Of course, we'll see you. We'll see you another Monday, and take care. Please leave us a subscription.
And guys, by the way, if you're not already following us on IG, make sure you do that right away. You'll find the link to both our personals, Bartek's personal, and the channels down in the description section. So look forward to connecting with you guys. See you all next time. Peace.